Hi, I'm Joe, and this is the Decahedron RPG Podcast.
Hi everyone, this is Joe. I'm doing something a little bit different today. Back in episode 79, I mentioned that my wife and I had just watched The Peripheral and we enjoyed it. And Evil Jeff was on that show, and it seemed to me that he was intrigued by the fact that both my wife and I share the same love for genre fiction, sci-fi and fantasy stuff. So that got me thinking about it, and last night my wife and I sat down and we recorded this episode. Now, this podcast typically revolves around tabletop role-playing games, and as much as I love gaming, I think that a true joy in life comes from our relationships with other humans. Some of us, like Carl over at the Geomologist, have partners that share our hobby with us, while other of us have partners that have no interest at all in this nerd culture stuff, and, maybe they tolerate it from us. My wife falls somewhere in the middle. She loves the genre movies and shows, but she doesn't really care for gaming. And in this episode, she's going to let you know why. So if you're here for the show's usual gaming-related content, this really isn't it. And I totally understand if you want to skip this episode. Go ahead, do it. You're not going to hurt my feelings, I promise. But on the other hand, if you want to know more about me, about my wife, about, what we like in, or maybe why we like what we like, go ahead, give it a listen. So let me introduce you to her, my amazing, awesome wife. Like I said, we sat down, we recorded this last night. Gonna play it for you now. Let's get started. Hi, Val.
Hi, Joe.
How are you today?
I'm good.
So a while back, Evil Jeff and I recorded a show together, and during that show, he said something, and I played it for you, and you had some things to say. That sounds angry. It wasn't anything angry like that.
I had some things to say.
You had some things to say. So I said, that might make a good episode. So let me play what Evil Jeff said, and then we'll talk about it. And this is Evil Jeff from episode 79. Just a couple weeks ago, in fact, my wife and I watched a cyberpunk series on Amazon. It was called The Peripheral. It was actually an enjoyable show.
Did both of you like it?
Yes.
Is that an unusual thing, or?
She and I have very aligned tastes. So, no, that's not uncommon at all.
They overlap, not all the same, but they overlap enough.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Now, you said that it sounded like Evil Jeff was trying to get me to say more, and I didn't.
I felt like maybe he was trying to find out if your wife actually watches the same things you do or likes boy stuff, as we say, because I'm a girl and girls don't typically like that kind of stuff, sci-fi and all that. And yeah, so. And we've said it before on the show in an early one. In fact, Jason called in about it when I said that your favorite movies were Wizard of Oz and I remember what the third one was, by the way. Wizard of Oz, Nightmare Before Christmas, and The Fifth Element. You can switch the last two. Fifth Element is actually my second favorite movie.
And Jason said something about how The Fifth Element had vibes of Heavy Metal, the animated movie.
No, absolutely not. I saw that movie when I was, high school, maybe? I saw it when it came out in the theater originally. I disagree with him on that, but that's a personal take. There are a lot of people that don't like this movie, but it's one of my favorite movies.
But you are a fan of the science fiction fantasy genre.
Oh yeah, sci-fi, Star Wars, Star Trek. I like zombie movies. I like Dracula. I like the scarier the better. Nightmare on Elm Street, the original one, is also in my top 10, which I guess is unusual for girls, but I like the stuff that I guess the boys grew up with because I grew up with two older brothers. And so I was watching scary movies through my fingers at like 5.
I'm not sure I would count Nightmare Before. I'm not sure I would count. What'd you say?
Nightmare on Elm Street?
Nightmare
Scary
on Elm
movie.
Street.
Scary movie.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would call that science fiction though. But like right now we're watching
but it's still, I'm just saying, just in general, I watch stuff that girls don't typically watch.
Right now we're watching Foundation on Apple TV based on the Isaac Asimov stories from the 50s, and we're really rocking that one.
Yeah, that's actually really good. I kind of like that element, sci-fi, futuristic, as long as it's not too far-fetched. But, I mean, some of the movies like that can be low budget and still be a great movie. It's entertaining. Doesn't have to be the best of what it is.
Oh yeah, we have this whole thing where we enjoy really bad, like if it was back in the 80s or 90s, I guess it would have been like straight to video movies, but I guess these days they're straight to streaming. But there was the one with the people that own the video store.
I can't remember the name of that one.
Oh, that was bad.
The movie that they cannot remember is 2016's Beyond the Gates. It begins with two estranged brothers reuniting at their missing father's video store. While searching the office, they find a VCR board game called Beyond the Gates, and the VHS game tape is in the VCR in the office. They play the tape, and a woman, Evelyn, asks them if they are willing to risk their souls to play the game. As for Joe and Val, they will be sent to Cinematic History Boot Camp in the DUD sector.
There was one where the guy turned into a dinosaur, kind of. I don't know if you remember that one. He was like a priest and...
The Velocipaster.
Oh, that's it, yes. It was so bad that it was funny. But yeah, I've always liked sci-fi. I mean, I definitely, I think, swing that way because I had two brothers and we started going to the movies very early on and I was always outvoted. And so I just kind of learned to love that stuff just because that was what was put in front of me, I guess. And I love to read too. And so I also read a lot of that kind of stuff too.
So you think that you're going to have the influence of your brothers? You wouldn't have had this love of things sci-fi?
I don't know, because I don't know anything different. I mean, I can honestly say I watched Creature from the Black Lagoon when I was a child. I mean, we watched all Star Wars and Star Trek and, all that kind of stuff. But that started because as soon as I could sit in front of the TV, there were two boys sitting in front of me going, we're watching this. So I really didn't have a choice originally. I love all that stuff, but I don't know if I would have been into that stuff. Maybe. I mean, who knows? It's hard to say, but I do love all that stuff.
I will also say that, like me, you are not a blind consumer of, let's say, geek media. Just because it says Marvel on the label doesn't mean that we're going to watch it.
No, I definitely can't subscribe to that. I won't watch something just because it's a specific brand or a specific concept, or I have to want to watch it.
In fact, there was it wasn't Marvel, it was Star Wars, but it was still on Disney Plus. Actually, weren't there two Star Wars series that we started and we just couldn't get the Mandalorian? No, we liked the Mandalorian.
No, I loved the Mandalorian because the baby's in that.
No, the Boba Fett Chronicles.
I didn't really enjoy that, not gonna lie. It was okay, but I was like, I got other things I'd rather watch. Phantom Menace, I think, was one that Lauren, my daughter, watched, and I didn't really want to watch that one either.
Phantom Menace was one of the movies.
No, there's a cartoon one.
All right. Yeah, I don't know.
You can cut that out if it's not true.
I
feel like that was something Lauren told me about.
The show that they can't think of this time is The Clone Wars. You will notice that Joe did not cut that. On a related note, Joe's blanket and pillow have suddenly appeared on the podcasting studio's couch.
You like movies, you like TV shows. I don't get the impression that what you read is sci-fi stuff. You read a lot of zombie stuff.
You're not wrong. I think some of it is because I did read some of that, maybe in my early 20s. I prefer my sci-fi to be in a movie. I would rather sit down for 2 hours and see it in a movie or a series even. For some reason, the sci-fi to me doesn't translate as well in a book. And that could just be because of what I was reading, but I'm not big on sci-fi in the books. Not at all. You're right.
Same thing with fantasy.
Yeah, that's kind of it's kind of weird how that is. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why that's a thing. I'm a big Stephen King fan. That's like, I have every book he's ever written. So, and like you said, zombies, vampires. I'm reading a series right now where there's time travel. Don't mind that as long as it's not too sci-fi.
I just learned the other day that there was some other classic sci-fi movie that he wrote. It's one of the other ones that he did as like Richard Bachman or somebody. It wasn't the Arnold Schwarzenegger one.
He did quite a few as a ghostwriter under a different name. Richard Bachman was his other big name that he wrote under.
Yeah, so what's the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger? Arnold Schwarzenegger, Richard Dawson.
It's the one where they have to fight for their life. They all go on the track or whatever.
The Running Man.
That's it.
That's it. But there was another a classic one. I was like, wow, that was him. I never knew that.
There's quite a few though that he's done as Richard Bachman. It just kind of, I think the thing is that was because that was stuff before he was big, obviously. There's a few. I know there's another one that you know. I just can't think of it.
So, before you met me, you had never tried gaming.
Nope.
And when we met, we played Savage Worlds for a little while, but not your thing. Why do you think it is that you like science fiction and fantasy movies, but not the gaming experience?
So, we did gaming in person, and it's very character driven. I feel like people expect you to kind of act like the character, and you're rolling dice and you're pretending to do stuff. That's just not my thing. I'd rather watch it. I don't want to be immersed in that. I don't want to sit with other people and do that. And I think some of that is the performance anxiety thing, right? Because I feel like when you're playing, you're kind of performing, and I have anxiety about that. So I think that's part of the problem.
All right.
And I don't like somebody else being in charge and somebody else is calling all the shots because they're designing the gaming world, and by rolling the dice, that means somebody else, meaning the dice, is deciding what you do, and a book decides what you do. I'm not into that. I like to do my own thing.
Well, it doesn't determine what you do. It determines if you succeed at what you're trying to do.
And that's even worse. So no, thank you. And I grew up with two brothers. They did not play Dungeons and Dragons, but I knew lots of people that did, and that was not my thing. I think my one brother might have played at one point.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I think he played at one point.
Because we met online, and in the very first email you ever sent me, you said, I watched my brother play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes,
Yes.
Well, he's not my younger brother, but he's the younger of my brothers.
Well, I mean, that's all I have, unless you have something else you wanted to say.
No, I think I'm good.
Well, I'm going to thank you for joining me, and this is good practice for when we do our own podcast.
Yes, it is.
Did you see that our volcano in Hawaii is erupting again?
I did. I'm super excited. I want it to just explode.
I call that our volcano because when we went to Hawaii last year, we spent a week on top of that volcano while it was erupting, and that was just so cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
Last weekend, we had another little low-energy adventure trip, but we went out to Lake Placid, the site of the 34 and 24, something like that, Olympics, and the 1980 Olympics, of course.
Yes.
And they have a mountain sled that follows the old, whatever that was, 20s or 30s.
It follows the original bobsled run.
Yeah, bobsled run, and it like banks where the bobsled would bank and everything. So that was kind of cool. That was cooler than I thought it was going to be even. And we've been there before to do the
actual bobsled run, where you get to go. At that time, you could go on the original track. You don't get to go all the way to the top, obviously. And you get to go with an actual bobsled driver in the actual bobsleds. And it was just the three of us. So the guy was in the front, and then me and you, we got helmets. We did it in the winter, which was so much better. I would never recommend doing it in the summer because you don't get the same effect. And, they bank up off the sides and in the snow. And it's very short and very quick, but it was worth it. It was absolutely amazing.
Allow us to provide both a clarification and a correction. Firstly, Let's clarify that the inaugural Winter Olympics hosted at Lake Placid took place in 1932. Now, for the correction, Joe mentioned riding a mountain sled that followed the 1930s bobsled run, but it appears he meant to say mountain coaster. However, it's worth noting that when they recount their previous wintertime adventure involving the bobsled run, that one was indeed in a traditional Olympic bobsled, utilizing the actual ice track built for the 1980 Olympics.
And then the other thing we did this weekend is that they have a thing where you can go up to the ski jump area, and I never knew that. So they have a lift that brings you, to the top of the mountain. Then once you get to the top of the mountain, there's a 26-story high tower that they go up, and that's where they jump from. That blew my mind.
So I used to watch that as a kid. I always used to watch that. The bobsleds, the ski jumps, I loved that. I had no idea we were going to be able to go up to the top of that. So for me, that was a huge bonus for the weekend. And it's really high, but it was really cool to be able to see that from their view.
Yeah. And then everyone else, of course, just take the ski lift down. But you and I,
we gotta go big. We gotta do the little zip line. It was a sitting down one, which is different than what we have been used to, but it was still pretty fun and it was pretty high. It was a little different than what we normally do. It was only one. I wish there was more, but it was pretty cool. That was a really great weekend. I would highly recommend it for people that want something for a weekend to do.
So I guess that this is a little teaser for our podcast once we start making it. Okay. Again, thanks for joining me, and I'm sure we'll have you on the show again.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, that's all we have. I hope you enjoyed that. I really do. It was fun to sit down and record it. It's nice to spend time with her. I love that she is so supportive of the time I spend with podcasting and stuff. Anyway, if you want to leave feedback for me or for Val, go ahead, give a call to the Decahedron feedback line. That's 562-RPG-CAST or 562-774-2278. You can call it, you can text it, we'll get the message. You can send the email to feedback@decahedron.com, or you can go to sayhi.chat/decahedron, or there's always the Play online forums, which is at www.decahedron.com/boards. All those ways are in the show notes. They're in the outro music that you are probably hearing now, or if you just go to www.decahedron.com, they're all listed there. There's a section called Feedback. Thanks for listening to us both. You rock as an audience. Until next week, happy gaming, happy life. Bye. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Decahedron RPG Cast. We'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a voice message by calling 562-774-2278. That's 562-RPG-CAST. Or by visiting sayhi.chat/decahedron. You can also email us at feedback@decahedron.com. Links are in the show notes. For more information, visit decahedron.com. Remember that Decahedron is spelled with a K. Music is by Kevin MacLeod. Logos by Design Cat. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep those dice rolling.